Hi, Kevin Coupe here, and this is FaceTime with the Content Guy. So, let's start with this. Both Michael Sansolo and I are enormous Tony Kornheiser fans. Now, if you don't know who Tony Kornheiser is, he is a former sports writer and lifestyle writer for the Washington Post. Really well thought of in that market. Basically, he doesn't write anymore. He made the transition to a local radio show in Washington, D.C., as well as being the co-host of Pardon the Interruption on ESPN. But it's a radio show that I really love because it's completely idiosyncratic. It's sort of what I would want Morning Newsbeat to be if it were a radio program. One of the things about Mr. Tony, as he refers to himself, is the fact that he's a total neophyte when it comes to technology. Just doesn't get technology. Doesn't have a smartphone, doesn't have an iPad, doesn't really use a computer very much. He refers to it as a Google machine, right? Needs somebody to plug in his TV for him when he buys a new one. You know, that's who he is. Now, it's also sort of part of the shtick, but it really is who he is. Now, I tell you all this because when I go for long drives, one of the things I like to do is listen to the podcast of his local radio show in Washington, D.C. Now, Michael can listen to it live because he lives in D.C. and just has to flip on the radio. In my case, I can only listen to it live if I happen to be near my laptop and doing something else. The timing just doesn't work out for the morning radio program. So generally what I do is I download it on iTunes, put it on my iPod, and then when I'm going for a long drive, I sort of catch up with them. And that's sort of fun. I had a drive to and from Atlantic City the other day for a speech that I was giving, and I listened to, I don't know, must have listened to 10 different programs. And he's actually taking the summer off, so I was listening to programs that dated back to June when they were talking about the NBA Finals, which is sort of fun. At one point they were discussing whether or not LeBron James was going to once again be a choking dog in the playoffs. Didn't work out that way, so it's sort of fun to listen to it a month or so later. But one of the other interesting things that came up out of this program that I was listening to, the podcast, and this is what I want to bring to your attention, is something that Mr. Tony talked about when it comes to technology. Now, he's in a running battle with management at the radio station because basically what management wants to do is release the podcast 24 hours after the show has actually been on. Now, you know, this sort of annoys a lot of us who listen to the podcast who'd like to get a little bit faster than that, even though I sometimes listen to it 6 weeks afterwards, but it's nice to have it current. But management feels that its mandate is to get as many local listeners as it can because it needs to generate local advertising. And what Mr. Tony's position is, despite the fact that he's largely a Luddite, is that that shouldn't matter. He's basically, his phrase is that management is fighting the last war. He said basically radio has changed. The way people consume information has changed. It used to be you could put a radio program on between 10 a.m. and 12 noon, and that's when people had to listen to it, and that's what you program towards. Today, people want what they want to listen to, whenever they want to listen to it. The same with TV, the same with movies. And it's important to adjust the business model. I think this is really, really smart. Basically, he's saying that management is hemmed in by old notions of how radio worked. It's time to stop fighting the last war and move to fighting the next war. Bingo. That's an incredibly smart thing to say, especially when you're a technology neophyte. You know, Mr. Tony suggested, and I think this is really smart, that what management needs to do is pull together a bunch of 20-year-olds and talk to them about, and listen to them, not talk to them, listen to them about how they want to consume content. Because he said it's going to be vastly different than the way people who are in the 30s and 40s and 50s consume content. And that doesn't mean you have to change everything overnight, but it means you have to start aiming in that direction. Now, see, one does not have to be a technology whiz to sort of get this. You don't have to be you know, a total geek to understand that the world is changing. Once again, it's a phrase that's come up a lot on Morning Newsbeat. There are fundamental changes taking place in the world today. And the thing is small incremental shifts very rarely are going to put you in a position to be able to market to and take advantage of those fundamental changes. Anyway, that's what I'm thinking about this Thursday morning. And as always, I want to hear what's on your mind. By the way, this allows me the opportunity to end this podcast the way Mr. Tony ends all of his radio programs, which is, if you're out on your bike tonight, do wear white.